All right. Um, Bear with me just a moment here. I just want to make sure everything is up and running. Um, oh, here, bear with me just a moment. Hey, I just sent what's that cat? Faithful Servants of Christ. I just sent him a link to the show, so maybe he'll stop by. Let me just put a link in the chat. Because there's a brother who I was trying to get on here with me, so he should be online right now. Um, so there's a fresh link in the chat for him. Let's see. It's just gonna take me a minute to get set up here. Um, so bear with me just a moment. Mm, It's set up and working well. Um, Let me just address a comment real quick, but before I do that, I do want to give a disclaimer. Okay, of course, it certainly has to be done. I have to give a disclaimer before I even start the video. The topics discussed in this video regarding the age of consent. I'm just simply pointing out the facts. I'm not advocating anybody to go against the age of consent laws in the state or country they live in. I'm not at all advocating that. All I'm simply doing is pointing out the facts. All right. So if anybody goes and, gets in some type of trouble for going against the quote unquote laws in the country or state they live in, that is on them. That is not on me. Just to put that disclaimer, this is simply for educational um, purposes. Okay, regarding you know the truth of this matter. Okay, so I just have to put that disclaimer out there. Okay, let me just hit the comments real quick. Um, this person here named More Than a Flame said, "I noticed you make a lot of content about this subject. Why do you focus on it so much?" Question mark. Well, you see, to answer that question is because it's a close subject to me. You know why? Because I grew up, you know, learning about this subject, and I was pretty much the only one who would speak about this subject. Okay, so that's why I talk about it, because if I don't, well, who the hell else is? Because I see that what's that cat? Robert Epstein, right, which is the author of the book that you see on the video thumbnail. All right, he don't really talk about it much anymore. All right, now whether he was paid off to not talk about it or whether he lost interest in it, I'm not sure. Okay, but to answer that question, the reason I talk about it frequently is because I was one who, was gifted with the knowledge of this subject to be able to speak on it. All right, unlike yourself, right? You wouldn't know a whole lot about it. All right, say for an example, if you don't know astronomy, I'm not going to come to you and ask you questions about astronomy. Does that make sense? Let me just send someone the link real quick. Should have been here by now, but it's all right. All right, so Lord willing, he will give us in a minute. Flame responded and said, "How would you know what I know?" And that's a good question. How would I know what you know? And the answer is I don't know what you know. But from my perspective, I would imagine that you're not too called up on the subject. Now, if you disagree, that's cool. Maybe you are. That could be true. Okay, I don't know you. And hey, look, you're welcome to click that link and to come on here and we can discuss it. All right. If you don't agree with the subject matter, well, we can discuss it. Okay. Click that link and come on here. All right. So, Um, going into the topic of the video, man, is going to be what? The teenage myth, right? The myth of adolescence. Okay, because the truth of the matter is that there's no such thing. Okay, in this society, they would have you, believe that there's, three stages of life. Okay, just as they're trying to convince the people that there's, three genders, right? You have male, female, and then you also have something in between, right? Which is basically a mixture of the two, which that's obviously not true. But the same thing with this concept, right? You have a child, then you have an adolescent, and then you have an adult, right? So you have an adolescent, which is what? Something in between being a child and being an adult. So they're basically like half child and half adult, right? So going back to, the concept that I presented, such as the genders, they'll have you think that there's something in between a man and a woman, right? Like it's half man, half woman. That's not true, right? So the same thing when you deal with this concept, it's not true. There can't be something that's in between being half a child and half an adult. That's clearly ridiculous. Let me hit the comments. Flame said, I can't do any live streams tonight, but when I do get a chance to talk to you, I'd rather discuss eschatology. All right, yeah, eschatology is a very good subject to discuss, so you're certainly welcome to join the show. Um, another night on that. So we'll deal with that maybe tomorrow. Um, you said, can I ask how old you are and how long you've been studying the word? Well, I'll answer that question. But first of all, when I do answer that, the thing is what? That none of that really is important because the scriptures tell you, I believe it's Job, the 32nd chapter, says, for the Lord looks not upon my age. But to answer your question, I am 19 years old and I've been studying the scriptures for about, say, 7 years, just to answer that question. Um, Let me see. As I said, I was trying to get somebody on the show here with me tonight, but apparently they backed out and don't want to do it now. All right. So I don't know what that brother's up to, but may Lord willing, he clicks that link. All right. Because I wanted to bring him on because he really wanted to discuss the subject with me. All right. Because, and this is a very important, you know, matter to discuss. All right. This is a very, may I say, important subject matter to discuss. You know why? Because this truly can change the world here. Okay. This subject. Hey, mighty God, click that link. Or you're welcome to join us, man. Um, But yeah, this subject matter truly can change the world. Okay, you know why? Let me give an example. Okay, what I'm proposing is what about, like, say for an example, all right, instead of making people wait for a number of years before they can achieve adulthood, right? Well, what about if we came up with a test? All right, now, yeah, I know obviously, a person biologically becomes an adult when they hit puberty, but of course, some people today are not brought up the right way. So that's why you have 15-year-olds act like little kids. All right. So what we can do is how about we come up with a test that it's a government administered test. And what it can do is give all types of questions that they need to answer about how to take, say, for an example, how to take care of oneself, how to, personal hygiene, and all manners of knowledge that one needs to have in order to dwell on their own. And if they can answer this all correctly, well, then why should we hold them back from adulthood then? If they can prove by this government administered test that they are competent and mature to be an adult, then why should we hold them back? It doesn't make logical sense. All right, so that's one proposal, for lack of better words, that I would suggest. Okay, say for an example, just as you have, certain cards such as you know, I believe it's what an EBT, something like that, but basically, a card that you can, give to the cashier, and they will, you know, swipe that, and it's basically a government given money, right? So you can use that to pay for your stuff. So what if we give certain people who can prove and they are able to be adults? Why don't we give them a card that they can use when they go places, and then when they're questioned about, well, are you, 18 or 21, they can give this card, and that would be their government administered pass because they have proven that they are an adult. Very simple. Let's see. Flame asked a question. I asked. I just asked because God said we had to be at least 25 years old to be a priest, and you called yourself a teacher. I just wondered. I'm working, so I can't really focus on this. And that's a good question, because first of all, I never claimed that I'm a priest. Okay, because when you deal with what is that? Numbers, the eighth chapter, it said you had to be 25 years old to work in the priesthood. All right, so I never came and said that I'm a priest. All right. So, hey, brother, as I said, do more research into, the statements you make. Okay. But hey, you didn't know. That's cool. But to answer that question, I would have to throw this at you. Well, if you go to, what is that? Luke, the second chapter, I believe, right? I believe it's Luke, the second chapter, when Christ was, teaching in the temple, right? It's like, wait a second. He was teaching the older people's there. And guess what? He was 12 years old. So what about that? Christ was a teacher, where he started his teachings when he was 12 years old. So I'd be very interested in seeing, how you would think about that one, because Christ himself started to teach when he was 12 years old. Anyway, going back to what I was saying, let's see. He said, yeah, he was 12. It's like, okay, good. So the point's proven. Um, and to go back to what you brought up, which I got to address that too, because got guys out there saying that no corn is the Bible. You don't become an adult till you're 20 years old. That's not true. And they get that because they go to Numbers, the first chapter, and it says that the number, if you wanted to be counted in the army of Israel, you had to be 25 years old or older, right? So they will use that to say, well, see, what that means, if you're not 20, then you ain't a man. And I will combat such a statement by saying, well, wait a second. If you go to Numbers 8, it says that you can't work in the priesthood until you're 25. So by logical deduction, that must imply that you're not an adult until you're 25. But the answer to this question is that both of those are incorrect. The reason why you would be restricted from working in or I should say taking part of the military until you were 20, is simply because the younger men would be needed to, be given time to hone their skills. Okay, so you wouldn't want to send a young man to war against a, fully grown man. They need time to hone their skills. All right. So the Lord set it up where at 20 you would be now ready to enact a military service. That doesn't mean that you ain't a man till you're 20. And if that's the case, well, wait a second. Well, why are you being restricted from working in the priesthood until you're 25 years old? So does that now mean that if you're 20 years old or 22 years old, oh, well, you're not a man? No, of course not. But you see, they'll cherry pick past that part just so they don't have to address the information presented. And I'll give a example. I was having a discussion with a group out there that calls themselves the Sakari, right? I was having a discussion with them on this matter, and they were teaching that you ain't a man till you're 20. So I brought up the whole thing about Numbers, the eighth chapter, and they didn't really want to deal with that. They said one of the cats on there, his name is Hassad. I call him Facade. He said, well, that was, a certain office. It's like, well, wait a second. So going to war isn't an office, though. They didn't really know how to answer that. You know what I'm saying? So, a lot of these cats out here, especially these ones who think they're in the truth, man, all of them are full of shit. All right. And that's what a lot of these guys are out here, man. Right? It's full of hypocrisy. All right. And that's what you're dealing with. Okay. You're dealing with a lot of, hypocrites out here. Like they'll strive away from, certain topics of discussion in the scriptures because the masses of people don't want to hear about that, right? The masses of people, you know, will be offended at certain, you know, parts of the of the scriptures, when they're presented. Bear with me a moment. Let me hit the comments real quick. Flame said, "Do you recommend any groups or teachers that you fellowship with?" I would recommend Great Millstone, right? GMS Great Millstone. Look them up on YouTube. Um, but yeah, that's oh, and of course, Mind of God. Check that brother out as well. You can see him up in the chat above you. Um, but yeah, if you ask me recommendations, that would be one I recommend to you. Um, but going back to the subject matter of discussion, right? Is as I brought out earlier, this concept that oh, well, you ain't, you know, an adult till you're a certain number or whatnot. That's all bullshit. First of all, somebody came up with that in the early 1900s. Matter of fact, which you can look this up, just go on Wikipedia and look up a man named Stanley Hall, right? G. Stanley Hall. Look him up. That was the man who basically came up with the concept of adolescence. Okay, like for an example, you has behind every concept in the world, there's somebody who came up with it, right? Like say for an example, gravity. Gravity has a person who came up with the concept, and then everybody else bought into the concept, right? Or another example, right? Charles Darwin came up with the theory of evolution. I believe it was sometime during, if I'm not mistaken, the 1800s that they came up with that. Okay, but guess what? But now that's taught in these school buildings as going to be a fact, which of course that's bullshit to begin with, but that's cool. We'll run with that. Um, but yeah, the point of the matter is all these concepts, they all had a creator behind them, right? Somebody just made it up and then they went along with it. Yeah, hit the comments real quick. Flem said, "I'm going back to work, but I'll try to talk to you later on." All right, that's cool, man. I was trying to bring Awakened Pennsylvanian on here with me, but apparently, I don't know. Maybe he didn't see it on live or bring him on to discuss the matter because he wanted me to do the show. So, but that's cool. Bear with me a moment. Right, but going back to what I was saying, man, is let's look at it from this aspect. Okay. If, which is what they're saying, is that you become an adult at let's say 18, right? Now I would have to ask, well, what is the scientific reasoning or proof of this? And you see, there is none because it's just something that somebody made up. And a concept that I would have to throw out there would be this. This is a logical standpoint to have. If a person does not become a adult when they hit sexual maturity, well, then what time could they then be considered to be an adult? At what point of their development can they change from being a child into being an adult? At what point of the development is it enough? Do they like pick a magic day that it somehow changes, or is there like scientific evidence that one could present to support that on this day of this year they now changed from being a child into an adult? That's obviously bullshit. That's clearly not true, right? Say for an example, right, the human body will always continue to change throughout its life, right? There can never be a day where, one day it's different, but magically the next day it's now somehow different from the day before. That's how they'll think, you know, that's how they want you to think, right? As Elder Apostle Dahor said when he was out there, talking with Brother Polite, he was like, "Hey, look, you see, you were brought up in this man fool system. So that's how you think, right? That's how they want you to think." And that's true. That's how they want you to think. They want you to think that way. Okay, because that's how you control the minds of the people, is you tell them that, okay, well, look, you're not an adult yet. Okay, so you got to be subject to these other people, right? You tell them that, and they'll believe that. Okay, and I'll give a little example. I remember a while back I was at a party, right, where my let's see, mind of God said, you know more than the heart does for your information. Which, hey, look, I'll say this, man. Hey, look, I mean, hell, ETT might be one of the 24 elders. ETT might be one of the 24 elders. They're sitting on those thrones in the kingdom, man. Who knows? Anyway, going back to what I was saying. Oh, I got a Wake in Pennsylvania on here with me. Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey man, sorry everything is all screwed up and stuff. You know, as I said, I have some stuff that came up tonight, so I was hoping maybe you could have done it at 12, but um, stuff comes up. Unfortunately, perfect timing. But I can talk. I could chat for a little bit. I was
Yeah, that's
really, I was really
go
looking
ahead.
forward to this talk, but unfortunately, it's how things work.
Yeah, I understand, man. I understand that. Hey, there's no hard feelings, man. As I said, I'm just there's certain times that, as I said, I'm in a situation right now where hell, I can't record in the house, so I can only come and record at certain times. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, I'm sorry about that, man. I
Yeah,
tried to go live exactly at 7, but the car wasn't here, so I can't.
yeah.
Just going off the situation. But anyway, you're here now, man. So if you're able for a couple minutes to stay with me, that's cool, man. So what's up?
Hey man, what's up, man? Yeah, man. So the most controversial topic, everyone gets all emotional about, when you
Yeah,
bring this
yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah,
when
this
you
is this has to be the most controversial topic that's out there, man, is this subject here, because nobody can actually engage in a discussion on this without being emotional about
right. Yep, yep. It's and the crazy thing is too, as I mentioned with you in Mind to God with that live stream, is that when you mention this subject, everybody seems to get up in arms about what you're talking about when you talk about the myth, the teenage myth, and everyone gets all up in arms. But as I said in that live stream, and I'll say it again, it's like, well, it's funny how they get outraged, and there's there's so much crazy stuff out there. They don't sexuality, the rampant homosexuality being spread, the transgenders, boys getting transgender. There's even transgender boys on YouTube. I mean, they look around like maybe 8, 9 years old, and yet we talk. Me or you or anybody talks about this subject, we're like damn demons, man. We're like, apparently we're the most evil thing in the world, and there's facts and evidence, whether it's biblical or scientifical, biological evidence or historical. There's a lot of things that back up what we say. We're not just saying it because we feel like that's what we feel like. There's valid evidence to this. You know,
Right, absolutely, man. And just as we were talking about the other day, man, it's crazy because hey, look, it's how ridiculous is this? It's okay to be a rainbow here in America. It's okay to be a transgender. It's okay to let little children, right, who are 6 years old to be transgenders. That's all okay. It's okay to sleep with dogs. It's okay to do all of that, but you can't sleep with a person who's under a magic number, though. That it's
yeah,
just absolutely unbelievable.
and it's natural too. It's what God made. Or if you and when I talk to people about this, like, well, I don't believe in God. I'm like, well, fair enough, but even whether you believe in God or not, biologically and on an evolutionary scale, why would evolution make why how are we at this point now? If people back then, and they agree that people, and there's proof that people you know had kids at a very around 15, 14 years old, then how is there so much people here? How did we advance? How do we have all, like, how is there so many more people now? How did we make it this far if they weren't capable of raising, if those young people were not mentally capable of raising those people? Just think about that.
Right, right. And you see nobody will do that. It's just all they're gonna do is act emotional and get in their feelings about it. And it's funny because if you ask them a question, oh, and also, man, is there any way you could mute that background? Because I think mine is echoing through yours in the back.
Hold on. I think I gotta try this. How's that?
Yeah,
Hold
that's
on.
good. That's good.
Okay, good.
Yep, that's cool, man. That's cool. Anyway, going back to what I was saying, as you know, yeah, man, it's crazy because, like say for an example, if I ask somebody, well, why do you become an adult at 18? They say it's the law. It's like, okay, well, what is the law? And nobody knows because it's just something that somebody made up. It's not, doesn't have to do with human biology. And I'll give another example.
Hmm.
If it is not true that a person becomes an adult when they hit puberty, right? When they become sexually mature, well, at
Hmm.
what point in the development process, right? At what point from that can they now be considered to be an adult? Because the human body will always change throughout its development. You're not going to be the same today as you're going to be in 5 years from now, and that will never change. That will always be how it is as you continue to get older. Your body will always change. So it's like, at what point does a person magically change from being a child into being an adult? If it's not about the sexual maturity, which is, in fact, what makes a person a adult. I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, your body and your mind is constantly changing. We're never stagnant. At a 15-year-old, obviously a 25-year-old is going to think differently than a 15-year-old, and a 35-year-old is going to think different than a 25-year-old, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Although some people really don't grow up. I mean, or some people really stay the same just about. Um, and I realize more and more how you know people want to claim they're so-called grown up and they're not. But it makes it's the thing. Well, mentally they're idiots, but you know what I mean. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah, man, I agree with that. It's crazy because a lot of 18-year-olds look like there's really no difference between an 18-year-old and a 17-year-old, and that's why like people are like, oh my god, how can you like a 17-year-old, for example? But it's like then they turn 18, oh, it's fine now, and it's like, but they're real. They didn't change. Like they're the same. I don't I quite don't get that, and that's why a lot of 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds still get ID because they still look like quote unquote teenagers, and
Let
it's
me let
it's
me give it a little example because you see, you can't tell how old somebody is by looking at them, right? So say for an example, the other day when I was, out walking to where I was going, I was walking past a little public area and somebody waved me down. I was like, hey man, can you go ahead and buy me some, alcohol, man, because I don't got my card on me. And I was like, hey man, I'm only like 18 years old, man. I would if I could, but I can't. So they looked at me and they saw a fully grown man, but
mm-hmm.
I was under 21, right? I'm 3 years under that, right? But they looked at me and they could see, oh yeah, this guy has to be over that. So see, the point I'm bringing up this is you can't tell how old a person is based on how they look. You can't do it. It cannot be done. I'll throw it back to you.
And it's true. And when you mention this stuff too, people like they say you're evil for bringing this up, and you're Satanist, and you're messed up, and it's like, but they never mention like, all right, they think like a lot of these people that say they think teenagers are little kids, but the only thing they never detest, the only thing they go off on is about is like, you're saying they can sleep with anybody, and that's why they get mad, but they never detest the fact that they say that they never detest us about them driving and working and stuff. They only detest that part of it. Like if they're little kids, so if they're little quote unquote little kids, why don't you detest all of it? Why does it always have to be sleeping around with some, you know what
Right.
I'm saying? Like they'll go after
Yeah,
just
yeah.
that part. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm trying to explain it the best way I can, but that's like the only part they like if they're little kids, you'd be going off about everything. Like they shouldn't be driving and doing this either. But they don't detest that part. They only detest, oh, they can't sleep with older people. But okay, well, if they're little kids, they really if they're little kids according to you, they shouldn't be really sleeping around at all, even with people their own age. They shouldn't be doing that, but they
Right, right.
do
And you
because
see, here's
go, go.
one thing I bring up, which is kind of like what you're saying, and I mentioned this in my manuscript, right? My book that I'm writing. I mentioned
Mm-hmm.
this as, and you see, nobody will talk about this part. It's like, so these little kids, they can drive a machine, right? They can drive a car around, which can kill
Mm-hmm.
multiple different people in a matter of seconds. That's perfectly fine to do, but they can't smoke a cigarette or they can't play a lottery card. That's not okay to do, but they can drive around a machine that can mow down multiple different people in a matter of seconds. That's perfectly fine. But you can't play a card game because that's like too dangerous to
Well,
allow them to do that. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, exactly. But their deadhead response is gonna be like, well, we should change that. They should have driving much older. That's what they're gonna. That's their response to that. You know what
Right,
I
right.
mean?
It's
That
just it's
that's what they usually.
unbelievable, man.
And it's funny too because I was on this. I was watching these guys were talking about the trucking industry and they were thinking about having 18-year-olds drive trucks. And they're saying they're too stupid to drive, and they're too irresponsible. But yet they never said any. They didn't stop. They're not stopping them from going to war.
Hey, you want to know
So,
something cool? My grandfather, I was talking with my grandfather because he owns a whole lot of trucks and stuff, but he told me that he was driving around those Mack trucks when he was 17 years old. So that
oh,
shows you, yeah, yeah,
hey,
and he's like, I believe he's like 70 some or 80. So that shows you that back then people were a little more open to
hey,
this concept. Go ahead.
I'm glad you brought that up because I have the same situation. My grandfather, who he recently passed away. He was in his 90s, but he started driving. He drove a Class A, the big 18-wheeler trucks. He started driving those trucks at the age of 14.
Wow.
Yeah, he started driving those trucks since he was 14 years old. So that and here's the kicker. He's never been in an accident in his whole trucking career and in his own personal vehicle. Has never had an accident ever. I even have his awards, man. I have his trophies for safe driving.
Wow, that's crazy, man. But another way to look at it, right, is when we
Mm-hmm.
go over the whole age of consent thing, you got guys out there to talk about, well, I obey the age of consent, whatever it is in the state I live in. It's like, okay, well, what one of those is true? Because if you do the research, right, the lowest age of consent is 11 years old, but the highest is 21 years old. So what is the real one? What one is right, but what one is wrong? And then how do we conclude which one is correct? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And the thing is too is that even God, even and let's be honest, really toward men, it's really a lot of men and women. They shame men for liking younger women, and it's really because there's tons of women that are you know going well if going well below the age of consent if you know what I mean, and no one ever takes it seriously. They rarely get in jail. They rarely get in trouble, which I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong, but it's hypocritical when guys do it and they get in trouble for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, I understand what you're saying.
But yeah, I mean it's crazy because what was I gonna say? I lost my thought. But yeah, what were we mentioning
Man,
again?
you might have to might let it go for a minute. It might come back on. But why he's uh why his mic don't work all I think it's back now. Can you hear me, man?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Your mic cut out for a minute, but you can continue your statement.
Okay. Well, man, I gotta head out soon. So I wish I could stay on and talk, but
Yeah,
I
that's
gotta.
cool, man. Hey, look, we'll do another show another day, man, when you're able to. But hey, if you're able to come back on, I'll be on for another hour or so. If you're able to come back on, then that's good, man.
All right, man. Hey, we gotta have a part two of this. Is this we gotta find something that can hopefully nothing comes up and we can really get a
Yeah,
time
that's
going.
cool.
Because I'm
Yeah,
not,
that's
I'm
cool, man.
because I'm kind of there's a lot of stuff going on right now and trying to figure stuff out here and trying to talk and stuff like that and getting stuff together. So I'm not in there, but hopefully what I was saying was some good points and
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, man. As I said, we'll do another show. We'll work out another time, that we can do it, man. I'm sorry that, you weren't able to come on for too long, but that's cool, man. We'll work something out another time, all right?
all right, man. All right, later.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for dropping by, man. All right, but anyway, going back to what I was saying is that, it's very hypocritical because you got guys out there, which again, I gave the disclaimer at the beginning of the show that I'm not saying, to go around and to disobey the laws in the state you live. I'm not saying that. So if you do that, that's on you. But I'm pointing out the facts. It's like, well, wait a second. What if I declare it's a law that unicorns exist? So now you have to say, oh, okay, well, that's the law. So that means that unicorns exist. It's absolute hypocrisy and pure nonsense, but by logical deduction, you would have to agree. Um, and that goes into which I'll give the book a shout out, right? The Most Dangerous Superstition by Larkin Rhodes. Right. Once again, that's The Most Dangerous Superstition by Larkin Rhodes, right? A phenomenal book. Go ahead and give that a read. Let me hit the comments real quick. Mighty God said, End time teacher, start up a new stream and let's get in the scriptures. Hey man, well, what I'll do is in I'll wrap this up in 5 minutes. I want to let it go to 40, and then I'll start a new stream, and then we can discuss any topic of discussion. All right. But hey, going back to what we were saying about the whole, teenage myth, which again, anyone who's watching, I have a playlist on my channel named The Teenage Myth. Click that, and there's like 200 videos on that. So go through, watch those, and you can be edified. Okay. Which we will do another part to this video. We will do another part with Wake in Pennsylvania, going deeper into the subject. Okay. Um, but the facts are the facts. Okay, so we're out here presenting the facts. Okay, and what are the facts? The facts is that a boy becomes a man when they hit sexual maturity, and a girl becomes a woman when they hit sexual maturity. And that is the way the Most High God set it up. Okay, that is the way at God, right? Yahweh have set the world up. Right, the Lord made all things perfect. Okay, so it's like, okay, then. So guys out here saying that you ain't a man till you're 20. It's like, okay, well, why did the Most High God give boys and girls who are 13 years old sexual feelings towards one another? And not only that, why did he enable their bodies to be sexually mature at those ages? I would think that by logical deduction, we could conclude that the reason why is because he intended for that. That's why, say, for an example, when you drink something, right? Your body's set up in a way so that hey, you can drink it, and then later on it will have to come out of the body again, right? So the Lord set the body up to work in that function, right? The same thing works with food. Okay, the Lord set up the body perfectly. Okay, so did the Lord mess up when he gave males and females sexual feelings towards one another at around 11 to 14 years old? Did he mess up on that? Or why did the Most High do that if he did not intend for them to engage in those activities? All right. It is very simple. Say for another example, right? And you can look this up, right? There's about you know, 60 to 70% of teens, right, in America in the United States are sexually active. It's like, so wait a second, if they are not mature enough to handle the responsibilities regarding sexual behavior, well, why the hell are they enacting it then? And you see, nobody really deals with the facts. It's all about emotions and how one feels about shit. That's what a lot of guys out here go off of, how they feel about things, where they don't deal with the facts, which that's what we deal with. We here at ETT, right, the end time teacher, I deal with the facts. Okay, I spit the facts out, and anyone who don't go with it, well, then you don't know the scriptures. It's very simple. All right, we're not giving our opinion and how we feel about things. We're giving the facts. All right, so if you hear the facts and you don't like that, then that's cool. That's on you. Hey, that's why Christ said what? Blessed is the man who is not offended in me. Right. That's what it is, man, because the message that the Bible brings is offensive to the majority of the people. Okay. Anyway, I'm gonna cut the video a little short here. I was planning on going for maybe 2 hours on it, but Wake in Pennsylvania, he was gonna be my guest on tonight. And he had a situation that came up, so I apologize about that. But hey, we're gonna do another part to this video. We'll do another stream on this topic in the future, so stay tuned on that. If anybody made it this far into the video, and if you're watching after the stream and you made it this far into the video, go ahead and put hashtag emotion free zone, hashtag emotion free zone in the comment section down below if you're watching after the stream. Um, And mighty God, I'm gonna go ahead and fire up another show, and then you can join that one in just a couple of minutes here. So give me like 5 minutes. and I'll get that up and running. But yeah, my viewers right now, stay tuned. I'm gonna go live once again on the channel after this video is over. So give me like 5 minutes and it should be up again. Anyway, with that being said, I'm gonna, of course, give all praises to Yahweh and His Son Yahweh Shai for this truth, and I'm gonna say shalom.